We are continuing our summer sermon series, a summer of grace. Last week we talked about how grace is for all. And the working definition we have of grace is God's way of loving us. God can say, I love you, just like we say to the people we love, I love you. But it means so much more when you actually show that love through action. And so when God does that, when God shows his love through action, that is grace. And today, this text, it took me a while to find grace in the text, to find the grace that I really thought would preach well anyway, until I read over and over again how God said to Abraham, the Lord is your shield. And then in the Psalm, it says, God is our shield. There's this Old Testament understanding of God as a shield, a protector. And for me, it's hard to look at life and see where God is protecting us. It's hard to look at life and see where God is actually standing there as a shield, but that doesn't mean that God does not protect us in certain ways. And so today, I like to say that by way of grace, God does protect us, but we'll get to that in a minute. Yesterday, we went on a tubing trip down the Brazos River, the young adults. And have you ever been on a tubing trip? It's fun. For a little while anyway. So the way you sit in the tube is that it's like a big donut, and you put your back against the back, and your legs hang over the front. And the only part that's in the water is, we'll just call it your hind parts. And you go down there, and what's interesting is I've done this in Michigan, but the water in Michigan is clear. The water in Texas is not. It's dirty, and it's got mud in it. And so you can't see what's underneath. And so you're going, and your backside is completely exposed to whatever comes up. And so the whole time I was wondering if there was a fish or a snake. And then I hit a rock. And I was floating backwards, and I hit a rock right here, and I have a huge bruise. And it hurt. I didn't see it coming, and I was able to tell others to watch out for the rock, but it hurt. It still hurts. And I think life is like that. There are certain things that we don't see that come up out of nowhere and bruise us. There are certain things, you can call it an illness, a loss of a loved one, loss of a number of different kinds. It comes out of nowhere and you can't see it. And it hits you in the back. Why didn't God protect me from that? I don't think that God promises to protect us from that. And I don't think that's the way we should understand God's protection. I think we should understand God's protection as God's presence with us. God says, I'm not going to protect you from the rock, but I'll be with you when you hit it. God is not protecting us from something. God is not an actual shield, but God suffers through it with us. God is protecting our relationship with God. Which doesn't really necessarily sound like that good of news. But if God was, say, merciful, God was merciful. Meaning, what is mercy? Mercy is God saying, you are guilty of this. Our text today says that God observes your deeds. God sees what you're doing. You are guilty of this, this, and this. But you're not going to get punished for it. That's mercy. Getting pulled over for driving 10 over and the cop saying, I'm going to give you a warning. That's mercy. So if we understood God as merciful, it would be kind of good news, I guess. But the thing about mercy is like, I'm not going to punish you, but I'm still mad at you. So what if we said God is merciful and forgiving? Merciful and forgiving. It's getting pulled over and saying, I'm not going to give you a ticket, and we're okay with you speeding. Go on with your life. So God says, you're guilty. I'm not going to punish you, and I'm not mad at you. That would be good news. But this is what God says. This is what the text says in Hebrews today. That God says, I am not ashamed to be your God. Meaning that not only am I not going to punish you, not only am I going to forgive you, I'm still going to love you, and I'm still going to be with you, always, through everything. And I'm going to protect this relationship that we have. This relationship of love and grace. I'm going to protect it from anything that would wish to destroy this relationship. That is good news. But the thing that comes to mind is, well, what if I don't feel God's presence? What if I don't feel like this relationship is protected? I think, relationship with God is a contact sport. It's one of those things where you need to get out there and be a part of it. It's one of those things where you need to be a part of the relationship just as much as God is. Because God's going to protect this relationship and do everything to maintain this relationship of love and grace. But it's still a two-way street. And so God protects this relationship so that we can be in relationship with God. So if you don't feel that close to God, you can actually do things to try and feel God's presence in your life. On Friday, we had a gentleman come to our house and put in a new cable jack. We were moving a TV from one room to the other, and he came in and he saw all the crosses I had on my wall, and we started talking about church. And he saw there's this thing that I have that says pastor. He says, "Oh, are you a pastor?" And so he started talking to me about Sabbath. He goes, "Why is it that people don't take the Sabbath seriously?" I said, "Well, this sounds like a loaded question." Okay. And I go, "What do you mean?" And I'm thinking he's talking about, people, they go do things on Sunday, And he goes, "Well, back at the Council of Nicaea, the Catholic Church met, and they changed the Sabbath from Saturday to Sunday. And I don't understand why they don't take it seriously." I was like, "Oh." So you're going all Council of Nicaea on me, huh? Just put the TV on. But it was really interesting to hear his take on Sabbath, because the Jewish understanding of the day of Sabbath is Saturday. He said, "Why did we change the day of Sabbath? Christ never said to change the day of Sabbath. Why did we say it?" And I said, "Well, we worship on Sunday because that's the day that Christ was resurrected. And every time we come to worship, we remember the resurrection of Christ. We remember Easter Sunday. And that's why we change it to Sunday." He goes, "Well, that's great. You can worship on Sunday, but why change the day of Sabbath to Sunday?" Well, why not? Yeah, I wasn't there. They didn't give me a vote. That's a good question. He goes, "Let me tell you my story. So being a cable installer, an independent cable installer, my busiest day of the week was always Saturday. But God convicted me to take Saturday as Sabbath, to be with my children and to reconnect with God. And so I decided that I was no longer going to work on Saturday, which meant that the busiest day of the week, I was going to say I'm not working anymore." And he said, as soon as I did that, the rest of my days got very busy. And it was amazing how Monday through Friday, those people who had to work now could take time off of work for me to come and work in their homes during the week. And he said how that Sabbath has really changed his life. Well, that's great. I wanted to say more. I wanted to say that, there are people who can be faithful and have Sabbath time without, who work on Saturday. But I just let him, I didn't want to get in an argument with him. But I think it's important that his message that convicted me, because it's true. Sabbath is important. It's important to take time to reconnect with God on a weekly basis. And that doesn't necessarily mean it has to be Saturday or Sunday. I know that people work weekends. It can be your day off during the week. Maybe you can't give a whole day because of your kids, an hour to just reconnect with God, to take a break, to work on the relationship, to communicate with God, which is the next thing. Prayer. Sabbath and prayer. Prayer, an opportunity to sit down and actually have a conversation with God. I heard something this week that just blew me away. I know a lot of us, what do you say during prayer? What do you pray for? I was talking to a woman, she takes a newspaper and she reads the stories of the newspaper and she prays the newspaper. She prays for people who are missing. She prays the obituaries for people who are hurting. She goes to the newspaper and prays. And Lord knows the Cowboys need prayer. Sorry, that was too easy. But it's important to work on that relationship. It's important to have that relationship. Because, like Karen Hurtado's Uncle Rich, who will probably die in the next 36 hours, when he leaves this life, all that he takes with him is his relationship with God. That's all each of us take with us. The relationship that God has protected through our entire life is the only thing we leave this life with. And it's the only thing we need